Jimmy Butler, he's a very interesting player to me.
Just goes to show the offense for the Dallas Stars could not keep up, and when the defense needed to step up, the Lightning's offense just overpowered them.
It makes it almost impossible for their bats to get going or have any confidence in the locker room when you're getting absolutely hosed on the defensive end.
He's like, oh shoot, I don't know where to go with the ball because I haven't been able to think.
It's their defense, man. Mika Fitzpatrick, T.J. Watt.
You saw Luka. I'm very intrigued to see how Luka bounces back after his first playoff series.
For next season, there are massive free agents like Giannis. And if Giannis goes to a team like the Heat, like I said before, I expect them to win the championship. 4 teams who could win the AFC in my mind, legitimately. Steelers, Chiefs, Titans, Ravens.
Stay undefeated when they face the mighty Cowboys with Garrett Gilbert and Tony Pollard.
It was a great series. Game 4 was one of the best games I've ever watched in my entire life.
So happy when the Astros lost because it would definitely be a 2020 thing to have the Astros win a World Series and then you have to hear them.
Now LeBron's a 4-time champion and Anthony Davis gets his first.
It's unacceptable.
Yeah, I was impressed by their game. Braden Point, Andre Palat, Nikita Kucherov. That was the best line in the playoffs, no doubt.
I think you have 2 established number 1 wide receivers in Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup. And I think you have an emerging star in CeeDee Lamb.
Hey everyone, I'm Jared Sandler, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to our 38th episode. We apologize for the mistake in our last video. That was our 37th episode, even though we said it was our 38th. And speaking of our last episode, make sure to go check that out as we talked about All-Star Game and made plenty of predictions. We will not be announcing the results. Well, you know the results, but our results of our picks until our next video where we will dive into and review our picks. But today we will be doing our long-awaited MLB World Series or Bust episode. And since the Dodgers won the World Series, they are no longer on this list right now because they made the championship.
Yeah, I mean, they've done some great things as of late. Like you said, they won a championship. So even though they picked up Trevor Bauer, it's not going to be like, oh, they have to win now because they've already shown their fans that they can win. And we're going to give them a year off of having to be on this list, a year or two, before we actually definitely expect, hey, they need to win. Their roster's getting older or whatever. But just like the Nationals, who won it 2 years ago, who are also off this list, teams that have won very recently, I see no reason of them being on here, or teams like Boston just completely falling off the map. So I think we're going to – are you ready to start with our first team?
Yeah. They are a previous team on our last year's list, and that is the New York Yankees. And they signed Cole Hamels. They had him for his first year, and he played well. And he started the Game 5 in the Rays, but they just couldn't hold the lead, and the Rays took that lead and went to the World Series. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it wasn't Cole Hamels. It was Garrett Cole. But I know, I knew
so
what you meant. It's fine. It's fine. We were talking about Cole Hamels before the video started, so I understand the confusion. But yes, Garrett Cole started the Game 5. I thought he pitched particularly well. They only lost 2-1. But yes, they are definitely a World Series or bust. Now, World Series or bust doesn't necessarily mean they have to win a World Series, but they need to make one again. And for some of these teams, it is win a World Series. The Yankees haven't made it since 2009. So if they just make it and show, hey, we are making improvements, we have been doing something besides just making it to the ALCS, it'll be a great improvement. But I definitely expect them. They're my pick to win the World Series this year. But what do you think?
Yeah, and to mention another former Rangers pitcher besides Cole Hamels, Corey Kluber is a guy they signed, and Corey Kluber's not the guy he was. He had a very injury-riddled campaign with Texas Rangers, only starting a game and playing 1 inning. But I think he can definitely, they get the high upside of Corey Kluber, is going to be great with Garrett Cole. And I think their offense will just stay the same as what we saw last year. but I definitely agree with you. They are going to be in the World Series. I think it's going to be against the Dodgers, and it's going to be a great series, especially when I'm catching on to the feud between Garrett Cole and Trevor Bauer, which is just fascinating to me.
Yeah. To continue, I don't really think the Dodgers are going to make the World Series this year. I feel like they'll make it to the NLCS, but I think a different team that's on this list will make it uh, to the World Series. Whether or not it's going to win, I have to wait and see injuries and all that. I'll definitely be changing my predictions as we go throughout the season. But yeah, the Yankees, I definitely expect them to win the World Series this year. I am a Yankees fan, so I would love that. But I do think they have the best roster in the league right now on paper. Not only do they have the experience of making it before, which the Padres really don't, they haven't made it to an NLCS in years now. But it's just the experience they have on their team. Garrett Cole's played in the World Series, which he did in 2019 in the loss against the Nationals. There's players like Brett Gardner, who they re-signed, that have won a World Series with the Yankees the last time they did it in 2009. So I definitely expect the Yankees to be premier contenders, and if they don't make the World Series, it is a busted season. So do you want to mention
No.
our second team on the list?
Yeah, and you mentioned them. This is a team who we definitely talked about how they had a young core, and they really forced themselves into this conversation, and that's the San Diego Padres. And they have made plenty of trades. They made the trade for Mike Clevenger during last year's season, and that was a 9-player trade, which is incredible. And they've really just they also traded for Blake Snell, also traded for Yu Darvish. So, what do you think about those moves and how that forced them into the conversation?
You're right. It did perfect word usage. It forced them into the conversation. They, in my opinion, weren't going to be on this list. They were probably a year away if they didn't make those moves. But now they've given up too many young pieces for me to think, oh, maybe it's a couple years out. Maybe they'll get players that they have been working on in the minor leagues to get them to the point where they are true contenders. But they got a player who played last year in the World Series. Uh, Blake Snell, he pitched amazingly in that game six. Probably shouldn't have been pulled. Even if he wasn't pulled, there's no guarantee that they would have won the game, but it definitely would have made it more interesting, in my opinion. But they have experience now. Mike Clevenger, I'm 90% sure he played in the World Series in 2016 when the Indians went. You can check up on that while I'm talking. But he's another player that is huge. He pitched very well last season. Has pitched well his entire career. Um, and it's interesting because I didn't really think they were going to make that many moves because of how young their team was. But like you said earlier, they definitely forced themselves into the situation. What do you think?
Yeah, and I believe you are correct. He did pitch for the Indians. I'm just trying to find the stats. It looks like he didn't start the game, but he did appear. Um, but they also got Yu Darvish, who is a guy who was in another World Series too. Um, and he, I think, may have played better if the Astros weren't knowing what he was going to throw. And then I want to talk about the Fernando Tatis extension because that really surprised me because he's so young. Like, why are you giving your put pledging yourself to a guy who hasn't even played a full regular 162 game season? He did play a full MLB season last year, I believe, but that was only 60 games due to COVID. And the year before, only appeared a couple times. And I kind of want to draw a parallel to this contract. So it was 14 years, 340 million. And then I think due to the uh, lack of money for the MLB because of COVID, that kind of lowered it. And I kind of see this to a similar contract from Mookie Betts, who signed it the start before the 2020 season, and that was 12 years, 365 million. So that's a $25 million difference. But I think due to COVID, it seems to me like these contracts are very similar. So looking at it, Mookie Betts proved himself, and he definitely deserved that contract in my eyes. Tatis doesn't have the track record. He does have the potential, but I think pledging yourself to that young of a guy who has shown great potential, but I'm not sure if he can sustain it, that kind of forced them into the conversation for me because they also do have Manny Machado, but they could have just waited on Tatis after he finished arbitration, or he hasn't even begun arbitration. So that's an unusual thing too.
Yeah, my thing with that deal, I agree 100%. Mookie Betts had already won a World Series. He'd already proven himself that he was a star player in this league. And even if the Dodgers didn't win a championship last year and they just made it to the World Series, that contract would still have been good. the thing is with, like you said, that's another thing that forces them into the conversation. They're spending this money on young guys that they could have saved. They could have saved for multiple seasons, brought new guys into the team, and really worked it through over these next 2 years. But if they're going to go all out and say this is our star player for the next 14 seasons, they need to prove it. And to prove it, they need to make it to a World Series. And I feel like that's going to have to start this season. And if they don't, it's a busted season. Not only because of everything they traded for, but like you just mentioned, the money that they're spending on this team.
And then I just kind of want to do another thing. We talk about, I think to me, the heavyweight in the National League is the Dodgers. And we saw the Dodgers face against the Padres. It was a series I was really looking forward to, and the Padres didn't really show up. And I think I blame that on their starting pitching. Mike Clevenger was injured. But you mentioned the moves. They went and go out Blake Snell, who dominated the Dodgers in that Game 6. And I think he was on a no-hitter, but then they pulled him. So I think that is something that is definitely shows they're trying to beat the Dodgers, and they're doing that by getting great starting pitchers. One that has dominated the Dodgers before.
Yeah, but he lost a no-hitter, I think, half an inning or so before he was pulled. And then he got pulled, like you said, and that was not the best decision in my opinion, but that's how the dice roll sometimes. Like you said, because they've gotten guys that have a good track record against the Dodgers. Yu Darvish, he pitched with the Dodgers. He knows how it works with their system. He knows how to pitch against those players. He pitched against them in practice all the time. So they're picking up these guys who have experience, not only in the World Series, but against these teams that they're going to have to face to get there. So I definitely feel like all these things add up, and they have to be considered a World Series or bust team with all the moves that they've been making. Do you want to move on to the third team?
Yep, the third and final team. We just really think these three teams are World Series or bust. And it's another team that faced the Dodgers, and I believe they're up 3-1 against the Dodgers, and that is the Atlanta Braves, who have Freddie Freeman and Marcell. They just gave Marcell Ozuna a 4-year, $65 million contract, and he's 30 years old. They do have Acuna, but I think Freddie Freeman's a huge player for them. So I definitely think he's starting to age up, and their window's starting to close. So they need to make that final push, and they were just a game away from making it to the World Series.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking. I was rooting for them, and this is really the team I feel like will win the NL this year. This was a team I was referring to earlier. Their players are getting older. Freddie Freeman, this is last year on this contract with the team. He won the MVP last year, the NL MVP. So I definitely anticipate this team to have a chip on their shoulder. Players across this league have really shown respect for them, but they haven't shown anything yet. They haven't even made it to a World Series, like we mentioned. They were up 3-1, one game away, and they just blew it. If they would have done that and eventually won the World Series, they wouldn't be on the list, and the Dodgers would be on the list. I mean, they could have gotten themselves out of this situation, but here we are. What do you think about the Atlanta Braves?
Yeah, I think they're definitely a team that got riddled with injuries. I was definitely pulling for them too, and I've just been shocked about how the Dodgers just fell flat once again in a big-time game. But they just proved us wrong. And then I definitely think their pitchers are coming back. I think Mike Soroka, a really good pitcher. I believe he had Achilles injuries last year, so hopefully they can come back. And then no bias here, but I'm looking with Kyle Mueller. Maybe he can come up and make a big play because he is on the 40-man roster.
Yeah, he went to the high school we currently attend, and I'm definitely excited to see what he can bring to a team that, like we said, is World Series or bust. Maybe he can be that player to put him over the edge. But really, the factor is, can Freddie Freeman replicate what he did last year? Can he be MVP again? And not necessarily be MVP, but at least be that type of player. The player that's in conversation, that's putting up 342 averages, and maybe he can't sustain that for a whole season, but at least bat 300, play well as a first baseman on the field, and really play inspired baseball like he played last year up until Game 5, where they just really fell flat. And then Acuna, amazing young player. I'm not surprised that he got the contract he did because he's already proven over his that he can survive a whole season and he's playing amazing. While I don't think he's better than Freddie Freeman right now, he should be within the next 3 or 4 seasons, right? Because Freeman this year will be 32. He's 31 and a half right now. So in short time, he's going to be the leader of that team. He's already proven that he can be, and it's going to have to be he's going to have to be an essential part of this team if they are to make the run that I expect them to. What do you think about their prospects next season?
I definitely think they're going to be pushing for it, and their infield defense is just incredible. Trevor Swanson, I am totally blank. Oh, Ozzy Alves at second base, Freddie Freeman at first. I'm not. They were definitely in talks for Nolan Arenado, but I'm not sure who's third base right now because I know it was a guy from Kansas City, Mike Moustakas, and then is Donaldson still with them?
By the way, you said Trevor Swanson. It's Dansby Swanson, by the way.
No, my bad.
I just wanted to let you know that's the shortstop you were thinking
Thanks.
of.
I'm mixing names, swapping pitchers' names, and everyone today. So thanks
Yeah.
for catching.
It's all good. Donaldson actually plays with the Twins right now, so he is not on the team. I don't really know. I can check currently what their third baseman is projected. But yeah, you're right. They definitely have a very good infield, and with Acuna in the outfield, I mean, it only adds to their defense. What do you think about their pitching?
I think their pitching's the thing that could limit them. I think if everyone comes back healthy, they can definitely push it. And when you're trying to, as I mentioned before, the Dodgers are the heavyweight. When you want to take down that heavyweight, you're going to need everything, and pitching's a huge part. We saw what the Rays could do to the Dodgers with their pitching, but their offense couldn't really do it. I think if the pitching's playing well, I think their offense can definitely tangle with the Dodgers. So that's what I think. And then I also believe Ozuna is a great player. He's definitely not playing center field anymore, but I think he plays left field. So he's another defensive presence.
Yeah. So I'm kind of struggling finding their third baseman. I think it's this guy named Johan Carmago, or however you say that. Sorry if I mispronounced that. But it seems like he may be the weakest point on their pretty elite uh, middle infield, or just infield. He's not middle infield, but infield in general. But like you said, their pitching is the only thing I'm worried about. They can hit. They put up like 19 runs in the game last year, almost 20, or maybe they put up 20, and I just don't remember it. Didn't they have that game where they scored 27 or something? I don't know. They scored a lot of runs in one game, and like you said, their defense in the infield and in the outfield is pretty spectacular. The difference is their pitching, and like we mentioned, that Kyle Muller guy, he could come in and be that stout starter or relief pitcher that could really add something to their team. But honestly, it's going to have to be a bullpen effort and a lineup effort through all their pitchers if they really want to make a run like I expect them to.
To help you with the runs, Braves, game 1, 5. Game 2, 8. Game 3, the Dodgers scored 15 on them, or hit 15 on them, while the Braves only scored 3. Game 4, they got 10. And then the games which they lost, game 5, three runs, and then Braves 1 run. So when they won, they definitely hit very well.
Yeah, and last year they actually won a game 29-9 against the Marlins, which is absolutely insane. I don't even know how that's possible, but they did it. Yeah, that's crazy. I don't really know how to explain that, but like we said, the only thing that's really a limiting factor for the Braves is their pitching, and if they can get that settled, I definitely think they're prime contenders for a World Series. And if they don't make it, like we said, they had a busted season.
And I believe that concludes our episode. Let us know what you think. Is there a team that we didn't put on the list that you think deserves it? Or do you think the Dodgers actually do need to make a run back at the World Series? Let us know. Also, just to talk about reference our interviews, Jared Sandler, who's a broadcaster of Texas Rangers, he's definitely busy right now, but he does have his own YouTube channel, as I mentioned, and he is focusing on the Rangers and their spring training. He's posting daily videos. So if you're a Rangers fan like me and they're definitely not looking well, go check out his channel. He also has great interviews. I believe he just did another interview. He did an interview in his own interview series with Taylor Hearn, a guy that we interviewed. So make sure to go check out that interview on Jared Sandler's channel and Taylor Hearn's interview on our channel. And then our next episode, we will be reviewing our All-Star game picks, and let us know what you thought of the All-Star game and of our picks down below.